is Hispanic Heritage Month in the middle of 2 months? I don't understand that.
It's very awkward.
I
don't love it. Right.
This is MJ Acosta-Ruiz. She's with the NFL Network. The NFL Network, Stugotz, it is trying things that I wouldn't have assumed once upon a time from the conservative NFL Network.
I'm with you.
What they're doing with their
Yeah.
programming,
Yes.
it's there's some places where it's being creative, and it's just, I think of the NFL as fairly rigid creatively, rigid in every way. And she's won Emmys. She's in her 6th season. So I will ask you, and thank you for joining us, your maiden voyage here. I will just ask you, have you seen a change in the way, a little more lightness in the coverage? Football takes itself so seriously. In your 6 years there, have you seen a difference just in what the creative community is there?
Oh, I think for sure. And I think that's a reflection of those of us who are on camera now. I think the more diverse you get, right? When you have Black and brown people, when you have Latina with her big curly hair there, you can't be as rigid as you want to be regardless, right? Because then you're gathering in a new audience who wants to see themselves reflected on the camera. So I think all of that ties in to just being a little looser, having a little bit more fun with things, and remembering that what we're covering is a game, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's for entertainment value. It's a game that we all love to watch and lean into. And so that's how it should be.
Without, previously indicting or damning whatever it was trying to be 6 years ago. But when you got there, did you feel a little paint inside the lines here? This is network television. We don't, you can be yourself, but we're going to do this the NFL's way.
I think it was different for me because I started off as a correspondent, right? I was a reporter out in the field. So I was almost in my own bubble, right? I was somewhat removed from the lines, if you will. I was out there, I was making my own relationships. I was in a locker room every day, talking to the players directly, talking to the coaches. And so I was able to paint my own little mural of what the NFL was for me and how I wanted to report on it.
Let's get to some of the football stuff over the first couple of weeks of the season here.
I thought that was Stugotz making that sound.
Well,
I am so proud of her.
It is. It resides in the same place.
I didn't like the first 2 questions either. I got to be honest.
That is football. Well, go ahead, Stugotz. Have at it. Ask your football question.
So we were debating right before you came on if Tua deserves all the credit for his success or if Mike McDaniel.
We weren't debating
We were discussing
that.
it the other day.
We were discussing it the other day, earlier in the week.
The other day.
Remember?
We weren't debating that.
We were discussing it.
You said it, and no
one day
agreed.
last week, maybe it was this week, but it was in the past. But regardless, who deserves all the credit for his success? Is it Tua or Mike McDaniel?
I think it's a mix of both, right? You can't discredit the player who's the one out there taking hits and making the plays and slinging the ball around. But I think there's something to be said for the Mike McDaniel effect. Look, I know Mike because I covered him when I was, again, that reporter 6 years ago in the Bay Area covering the San Francisco 49ers. And he's always been an offbeat dude, right? Like his mannerisms, the way that he presents, it's all very different than what you expect and what you've normally seen from an NFL coach. But I think that resonates with a lot of players. And I think he is one of the most creative and one of the smartest NFL minds that there are in the games coming from that Kyle Shanahan tree. So I think it's a mix of both. I think Tua had the talent there. We just had to see it all come together. And I still think we're just scratching the surface now with what we saw last year and what we've seen through 2 weeks now in this season as well.
If you made a pie chart, how big of a piece would you give to Tua versus Mike McDaniel?
Be careful.
2 pieces of pie to Tua, 5 to McDaniel.
Is it from the same humble pie that Dan Campbell
what kind of
was
pie?
eating from?
Well, what about Brian Flores, who was his coach before? Where's he on the pie?
Exactly.
No pie for Brian Flores.
No pie.
No pie.
I think if we're just taking the sample size of what we're seeing now and how excited Dolphins fans, myself included, are about it, I would say like 60-40 to a Mike.
Can you explain to us in a way that I have not seen or heard or read well explained what it is that Shanahan and McDaniel know that all of these old buffoons do not know? Please explain to me how it is that one can be smarter in the margins than everyone else.
I think that when it comes to Shanahan specifically, and you see it just out on the field, right? He didn't flinch the moment that his starting quarterbacks, right, more than one, went down, and he put in a 6th-round draft pick. One, because their personnel department and the scouting that they do is probably tops among the league, right? So they know the depth of talent that they have. But two, schematically, they know that, and I don't want to call it plug and play because I don't want to do a disservice to the players and to what they do out there. But I think when you have a scheme, the way that they run that West Coast offense, the way that they know whatever we do, we're going to be successful. It takes a lot of intricacies, let's say, a lot of trickiness, I think, and a playbook that's probably a mile long to make that happen. So I think he's built that throughout his career, throughout the different places that he's landed, and certainly in San Francisco. And now Mike was a big part of that, especially with the 49ers. And now he's bringing that to the Miami Dolphins. We're starting to see it. I love that the run game is getting involved more, especially over the last couple of games. I think that evolution will continue to grow in Miami and just become more of the Mike that we see, because I think there's still that tethering to Kyle Shanahan. I think Mike McDaniel is making his own way.
Let's do this another way, though. If by consensus the people listening to this would say, okay, San Francisco schematically and organizationally, they seem to have the best advantages, the best of however it is that this is done, then who's the most talented team in the league? And who has the most players at value, which is how you win the financial part of this game?
I think it has to be the 49ers for sure. Not just because I have quite a few of their players on my fantasy team and they got me the win last week, but also what they've done in just building these pieces throughout the years. I think defensively, I think they're the top defense in the league. I think they were last year as well. And offensively, what they've grown and the pieces that they put in with Brandon Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel, with Christian McCaffrey, and the list goes on and on with the run game. It is probably one of the toughest teams to beat right now in the league, if not the best. It's
funny we do this thing with the 49ers and don't criticize them for trading 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance.
That's not true, Stugotz.
Who criticizes them?
Stugotz,
you tend to overlook that when you're going out there and you're winning, right? Like,
but Stugotz,
that was a bust,
everyone
unfortunately.
Says that's an enormous mistake, one of the biggest in the history of the draft. How much more criticism
It's a
do you
colossal
want?
mistake. 3 first-round picks for a quarterback they traded to the Cowboys.
Everyone agrees with that.
It's also a little convenient because keep in mind the person that Kyle Shanahan was caping up for was Mac Jones, who I think is 1 for 11 when targeting downfield for 20 yards.
But the question then becomes, would Mac Jones be Brock Purdy right now if he was in that offense?
I have no doubt.
Trey Lance wasn't.
Well, it's complicated in talking about it because you always want to just give credit when you see the Shanahan offense has worked in the NFL for 40 years. People have been able to replicate it. Gary Kubiak was.
Matt Ryan was an MVP 1 year, and it's when he had that guy as his offensive coordinator. Why'd you make that face? You made a face at me.
Not 1 year. Not 1 year. That was shade. That was poor shade.
But I'm saying but
he was MVP for 1 year. But she's saying that he was way better than that for many years.
He wasn't that.
Yeah, for as long as Kyle Shanahan was there.
There is something, man. I don't know what to tell you guys about Belichick. Everyone explained to me that organizationally he's had all the advantages. I'm sure he had much to do with whatever it is that Tom Brady became, and we'll make it all or nothing. But the idea that living among us is a coach who could get it that wrong on Trey Lance as an organization, but get it so right in value everywhere else that it doesn't matter that they get it wrong. That's far and ahead away from everyone else who's coaching in that sport. And I'm here to tell you that usually doesn't happen for the coach who hasn't won a Super Bowl. That's not something I see very often or ever.
Fair enough. I think so. But I think with especially with first round draft picks, I think what people and what we're sort of stuck on is how aggressive they were about going to get Trey Lance, the amount that they gave up for him. And that's a valid point. I think all of us were sitting there like, all right, let's see this Trey Lance era. But everything in the draft is a wager. You never know until the guy gets out there. And unfortunately, Trey Lance barely got out there, pobrecito, bless his heart. And now he's wearing a star on his helmet. So,
do you think the Browns wish they had Baker Mayfield back?
Oh my God. Oh, the Browns. Oh, the Browns. Oh, the Browns. Oh, the Browns. I think the Browns wish they had a lot of things back.
You do, Mike?
I'm a recovering Browns fan, no longer a Browns fan because of the Deshaun Watson stuff. And I am really enjoying Baker Mayfield's season, like devilishly enjoying Baker Mayfield's season. And I keep every week that passes, I want to see the side-by-side comparison because I find it so freaking funny.
You'll see it. Yeah. It'll be there. It'll be there forever. Don't worry. That side by side is not going away, my friend.
Fully guaranteed, though, for 3 more years, $46 million. Can they actually bench? Can they have their backup quarterback get $46 million guaranteed?
No. It's going to be insane.
Because he's not any good anymore, correct? Deshaun Watson at $230 million guaranteed against the Steelers. Steelers are good. Watt is extraordinary and unblockable, but 16 of, 29, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and all passes that are 5 yards. And you have Cooper, you had Chubb, and then Njoku is a legitimate skill position player that has been used well there, and they can't do anything offensively. He's bad. He's bad now.
Yeah. I mean, look, one can call it karma there, but objectively and just statistically, it's not good. It's not good. It's looking like if we're going to criticize Shanahan for a bust in the first round pick, we absolutely have to criticize the Browns for giving a fully guaranteed contract, one of the biggest in NFL history, or the biggest at that point. You have to look at this and say, now what? What's the ROI on here for you guys? Not good.
This is how long were you in Miami? How long did you work in Miami?
To collectively about 7 years, but I grew up in Miami, high school and college as well. So that's
¿Dónde fuiste?
Sunset High School.
Oh my God!
I know.
I had to give that just
Kendall,
to Kendall. Stand up, thank you.
Girl.
I'm a Killian guy, so we're always gonna be our rivals. It's okay, but your favorite croqueta? Go.
Ooh, croqueta de jamón from Sergio's, no question.
Really?
Sergio. We're an Islas show over here.
Yeah, we're an Islas show.
I do like Islas, but I was never there. It wasn't close to me.
Coral Way is far too from Sunset.
Far.
There was a lot of
60 blocks.
I'm basically off of Chrome.
Chrome.
So they had
You've been in Hollywood way too long.
Another refunded dia.
We never go to Chrome.
Exactly that. So we had Sergio's all over the place, and La Carretas too.
La Carreta stand up.
Yeah, let's go.
El Huddle is the podcast. What are you doing differently there other than saying El Huddle instead of the Huddle?
Right. Precisely.
Well, there's an accent on something, presumably, too.
NFL coming
without
soon.
question. That's how we lead, with the acento for sure. I think for us and my co-host Will Selva, the whole point of the podcast is to talk about football through the lens of the Latino fan base, right? I think for us, and I'll just take the example of my dad, right? He came to the US in the 80s. He's a Bills fan to this day. I know it pains me. But because when he got here, Jim Kelly was the biggest thing, the only thing that he saw. And that was his way of assimilating to the American culture. And for him, there's nothing more American than American football. And so for us, the journey is a little bit different, I think, from the Latino perspective. And I think we're spoiled, right? Those of us from Miami, because we never lose that. We never lose that Latinidad. We never lose that piece of the culture. But it's tough elsewhere in the United States when you're a Latino fan. And I've been blessed to be able to travel the entire US covering this game and meeting the Latino fans in the different pockets that are not Spanish speaking, that are very American, very Caucasian. And for them to have that little footprint, to carve out that just a little sliver of croqueta for themselves throughout a game instead of eating hot dogs and hamburgers, it's special.
Oye, so it's called El Huddle, no?
El Huddle.
Dale, voy para allá. Just let me know. Give me a Zoom link.
Bing,
All right, your
Okay.
guest,
Same,
Tony has just invited himself on. You've got your own El Huddle. It's the one the Jets are in. Thank you.
Mis también.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Vámonos.
Thank you, guys.